Okay, there you go. If you refresh that YouTube link, you should see live now. Just make sure you don't play it. So it is there. That's good. I'm just checking all the
Sure. Streams.
Yep, all the streams, and it appeared on my Twitter also. So that's good. I'm assuming it's going to work on because those are the primary ones that I use. All right, so we're live definitely on Twitter and YouTube. It's working. And I do have chats coming in if people want to chat and stuff like that. I'll see those things and I'll share them. Cool. Yeah, if you share the YouTube link from that events page with everybody, that should be perfect.
Yeah, that's what I did, and I'm sure some people from my student groups are going to join, etc.
Oh, perfect! Awesome.
Could you see how many people are live in the stream?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll share the stats with you and stuff like that. So it's not a
Sure.
It's not a problem. Well, thank you for joining us this week with Sabir. I'm Sabir Samarkand. I'm the founder of growthbysabir.com. And the goal of this show is to actually bring in people who I really admire and respect in a specific field related to like social, digital, e-commerce, Amazon, Shopify, and any of those kinds of things. It's going to be a great show for business owners of all different sizes, anywhere from startups to entrepreneurs to Shark Tank entrepreneurs to all the way to Fortune 50 companies to kind of join us and kind of get educated in these 60 minutes. So first up in our hot seat is Isaac Rudansky. Thank you for joining us, Isaac. So just I'm going to say a quick bit about Isaac. I actually came across him by buying one of his courses. Yes, even though I'm a veteran for 20 years, I do buy quite a lot of digital courses also because you never stop learning. And I came across it. I really loved the course that he had put together. I think it was very thoughtful, very, very detailed. I really admired how he approached it. And then when people did ask me about Google Ads, and that's his superpower, I would actually send them to Isaac's course. And lo and behold, they would finish up, I think it's like 26-hour course, roughly. They would finish up the 26-hour course and then come back. These are business owners. They would come back and tell me, well, I actually applied it. Thank you for that recommendation. It was like the best money I had ever spent. And I spent X dollars. I spent $500 right off the bat as I was learning on Google Ads, and I produced like $4,000, $6,000. So that's quite a lot of great return on your investment in time for 26 hours, as well as the $500 that you gave to Google Ads to get your return and get your business going. And it does become a vehicle, because in most cases, I see a lot of businesses focus on, they would put up their Shopify site, and the very next thing they do is they go on Facebook and start advertising. But there is a really mature platform like Google Ads that they kind of ignore or they're not aware of it. So that's why I wanted to kind of bring a lot of attention to it by bringing in one of the people I really respect, kind of a master in this master class, Isaac Rudansky. And I would like to hand it off to you to kind of give us a little bit more about who you are, what do you do on a day-to-day basis, why do you love teaching, and why do you love growing businesses? Go for it, Isaac.
Thank you for having me, Sabir. This sounds like it's going to be a really fun hour. And I like these types of formats where it's authentic and we could talk from the heart and just from experience. And it's like a nice open format for people to come and listen and hear and see and sort of see inside other people's experiences. I teach, as you mentioned, I teach Google Ads, but fundamentally I'm not a teacher. like I'm a practitioner fundamentally. We have an agency. I'm the founder of a digital agency in New York, and we've worked with over 500 companies. Our clients include Carriage Negotiating, Hanes, the International Culinary Center, Forbes Magazine, AMC Networks, Hearst Publishing. Like, these are legitimate brands who are spending a lot of money on digital advertising, and they have complex campaigns and complex business outcomes that they want to achieve through their marketing. And our team just works hard. We're smart, we're dedicated, we enjoy what we do, and we have to figure out how to make it work. And there's a lot of things that come along with that. There's how to run our business, make sure that we're staying profitable, making sure that we have a good culture, making sure that we're growing. And then we have to make sure that our clients' businesses are growing, and the communication and the skills. And it goes far beyond just Google Ads. It goes into other channels. It goes into other types of marketing. It goes into other types of financial analysis and modeling for our clients. So all of the education and the teaching, and the reason why the education has been popular, I think my Google Ads course, like you mentioned, which is around 26, 30 hours, something like that, has almost 200,000 students around the world. And the reason why it's popular is because it's just a very transparent look at the stuff that we do. Yeah, sure, it's thorough and it's a long course, and but it's not. When you go to Google support docs, those are valuable because they're coming from Google, but you're missing a certain feeling of authenticity and insight that you would get if it's like, look at what actually happened in this account. Look at what actually happened when this mistake is made. Look what actually happens in the real world, how these strategies actually impacted a real business. And the education that I do gives me the opportunity to show clients and to show students in real time how strategies progress. It's not just it's not just a list of best practices. Like, anyone can get a list of best practices by doing a Google search. And anyway, best practices really shouldn't be given too much attention or importance anyhow, because when it comes to digital advertising, there really is no such thing as a best practice, because every campaign and every account is different. There's concepts that you could implement, there's ideas, there are strategies, but it's all about testing. It's all about knowing your information and making sure that you're putting the right information into the machines, making sure that you have the right information. You're not jumping to conclusions about things. Well, we can get into that in more detail, those ideas. But that's what I do. That's what I teach. So when it comes to teaching, either way, if it's my actual full-length courses or my agency Overdrive, which is a monthly membership, it is all stuff that we're doing in the agency. It's all stuff that comes from clients. It's all experiences that are either successful or not, or failures that we'll talk about, because you could learn, like it sounds cliche, but it's true. You learn more from your failures, from campaigns that didn't work, than you do from campaigns that just happen to be successful.
Very cool. So what I would like to do is kind of structure the conversation, because we do have quite a lot of audience members who may not know what Google Ads are. They might be real experts, or they may have utilized like Facebook advertising. So let's start with what is Google Ads and where does it show up?
So Google is an advertising company, and people don't really know that, or some people don't know that. Like, Google is not only are they an advertising company, they are the largest advertising company in the entire world, by far. If Google, I don't know the numbers as I used to when I was doing my early courses. I knew these numbers much more accurately, but like, Google's doing something close to $200 billion a year in revenue, or 180 or 170 billion a year in revenue. It's a lot either way. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with a company that's where you're making an error plus or minus 20 billion, and they're making a lot of money. Yeah. Like 95% of their revenue is from ad clicks. Like, that is where they make their money. Like, Google's a huge company. You think they make money on their phones? Like, they make a little money, but like, they're an advertising company. So what does that mean? Google really is a referral business that's monetized through advertising. The internet is a big place. People are trying to find answers to their questions on the internet, and Google helps them do that easily, right? It's like the yellow pages, the white pages. They monetize their system, their referral network, with ads. What makes Google different, what catapulted Google to the world's largest advertising network, is that it allowed advertisers to capitalize on commercial intent. So if you're placing an ad on a billboard, or you're placing an ad on Facebook even, or you're placing an ad in the white papers, you're not using commercial intent. You're hoping that people who are interested in what you sell will see it. With Google, you're showing an ad to somebody at the moment they've expressed interest in your products or services. That's what makes Google so powerful. If somebody searches for fountain pens with an extra fine tip, a pen company, and we have a client that actually runs a large website that sells fountain pens, we could show ads to that person. And that's powerful because the person, that user, that individual just expressed a degree of commercial intent. Now, we don't know for sure if he's going to buy today. We don't know for sure if he's going to buy from us. We don't know for sure if he even wants to buy, right? Maybe he's looking for research, or he's a competitor. Who knows? The point is when taken in aggregate, you could infer commercial intent from people actively searching for answers to their questions. And that's a very, very powerful thing. So where they show up is when you do a Google search, you have your search engine results page. It's called the SERP, S-E-R-P. And it used to be you had 4 ads on the top and you had all the 8 ads on the side. Google a couple of years ago removed all the side ads, and now it's just top and bottom. And bottom is really negligible. No one gets clicks if you're on the bottom. But you have 3 to 4 positions at the top of the page for text-based ads. These are ads that have headlines and descriptions and some ad extensions, like your pricing extensions, or what we call Sitelink extensions, where you could send users to different pages of your website. Then there are Google Shopping ads. Shopping ads are ads of physical products that have an image and a price in the actual ad, and that pulls from a data feed. So if you have a website on Shopify, Shopify then looks at all your products, your variants, your descriptions, your titles, your prices. That information gets sent into what is called Google Merchant Center. Google Merchant Center is an outside software that connects to Google Ads. It also connects to other places. And Google Ads will read the feed. And if you're an e-commerce business, you could leverage Google Shopping, and it's really, really worth leveraging Google Shopping if you're an e-commerce business. Because why? Why is it important? Because how does Google charge you? How do you pay Google? You pay Google for clicks. So if your ad is shown 1 million times, if you have 1 million impressions, but nobody clicks your ad, you don't owe Google any money. The advertiser does not owe Google a penny. So you want to really, if you're a direct response advertiser, which most advertisers are, meaning they're not looking to spend $1 million on public
brand
communications or brand awareness, right? You're a direct response. You want sales. So you want to really make sure you're getting clicks that are from people who are in your target market. A shopping ad, which shows an image of your product and a price for your product, really helps qualify your clicks. Because somebody who might be looking for, let's go back to our fountain pen example, right? Fountain pens could go from, here's a fountain pen on my desk. This is $14, $15. Now, to many people, that might be very expensive for a pen. And it is expensive for a pen. So you could get fountain pens from Amazon for a pack of 5 for $6. They have these little disposable fountain pens, right? So that's whatever that is. It's $1 a pen. Here's a $15 pen. You could buy my client sells pens on their website that are $45,000, right? So we're talking about a range of fountain pens, right? So one person could be doing a search for a fountain pen. And on the top end of the spectrum, you have a buyer who might spend $50,000 on a fountain pen. On the other side, you have a buyer who's looking to spend no more than $2 on a fountain pen, right? Enormously broad range. And users don't necessarily make that clear in their search, right? So let's say I'm looking for a $200 fountain pen as a gift, right? I'm not going to express to Google through my search, I'm looking for a $200 fountain pen. I might just say fountain pen websites, right? Now, if I'm saying fountain pen websites, all the fountain pen websites, they want to potentially get in front of me. They would love to know if I'm a $2 buyer or I'm a $10,000 buyer or I'm a $200 buyer, but I don't say that. So it's difficult for Google to know. We'll talk later on, we might get into automation, machine learning, algorithms, the modern strategies for advertising that actually get you closer to this. But fundamentally, it's important to understand the basics, the foundation of search advertising, so you could understand how the technology has progressed over time. So the issue is all these advertisers, they don't know who I am. They don't know. All they know is that I'm interested in a fountain pen. They don't know if I'm interested in a $200 fountain pen, a $2 fountain pen, or a $20,000 fountain pen. So a shopping ad allows the advertiser to show me images. And if I'm a $200 guy and I see an image for a $20,000 pen, right away, I don't need to click. I don't need to click and cost that advertiser his CPC for me to go to the website only to discover that these are out of my price range. Mm-hmm. If I see a pen, if Amazon shows me a shopping ad, and Amazon's actually Google's #1 largest customer, by the way. If Amazon shows me a shopping ad for a $2 fountain pen, I don't need to click and cost Amazon its CPC because I know that I'm looking for something more expensive. So the shopping ad where it has a specific image and a price really helps qualify clicks, which is why typically shopping advertising is much more expensive. It's more expensive per click. Typically, it's also much more effective. You have a much higher return on ad spend. It could also be sort of a circular, it's not necessarily all due to the fact that shopping has images and prices. It could also be that shopping ads are for e-commerce, or they're used by e-commerce companies where there typically is more commercial intent in the searches. So it's like a chicken, egg, which one came first in a way, but they're both helping each other. So shopping ads is definitely an important, really important campaign type to leverage if you're an e-commerce business and you're selling physical products.
Yeah. So we went through like the e-commerce side of it. What if you have a retail brand, right? You're a retailer. What options are available to me, especially knowing, because right now we're going through this pandemic right now, the COVID-19 pandemic. What are your thoughts on how Google Ads can help retailers or retail businesses in selling? And retailers doesn't have to mean CPG companies or like a grocery stores. It could also mean like restaurants and bakeries and other types of businesses that could benefit. What are your thoughts on that?
So people tend to make the mistake and think that a small business that, let's say, serves a 10-mile radius, a restaurant or a small local retailer. We're not talking about like, an international or national retail chain like a Home Depot. It's a whole different world. But a small business, you're a trucking company, you're a florist, you're tree removal, you're a gardener, whatever it may be, right? You're a restaurant. You could do very, very well because Google and Facebook and all digital advertising platforms allow you to target your ads very specifically. So let's talk about Facebook for a second. If you're advertising on Facebook, you could be running a promotion, right? Bring in this coupon code for 10% off or a free muffin with your coffee, or a free, your first 2 lawn mowing sessions of the year for free of the season, whatever it may be. You're running a promotion. People love promotions. And you could target those ads within a very specific radius with very specific interest targeting. And you're in a way insulated from the larger advertisers that are bidding nationally, because when you're bidding locally and you have a higher click-through rate, which means the percentage of people who see your ad click your ad, you'll get rewarded with lower than market costs per click, which is a really important thing to keep in mind. Like these ad platforms, this was before my time, but back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was just a first price auction system, right? The highest bidder won. If I wanted to bid on a click or an audience or a keyword, the money just went to the highest bidder. The ad spot went to the person willing to pay the most. That's no longer the case. These companies realized that if they could force advertisers through a carrot and stick basic BF Skinnerian system, then their ads would be more relevant to users. The users would have a better experience, and they would make more money in the long term. So Google introduced Quality Score in 2005. Facebook has quality ratings of their ads and your campaigns and how you're set up and how you're structured. Google has this new thing called Optimization Score. All these things are basically geared towards making the fact that there's so much advertising happening be as unobtrusive as possible. Like Facebook doesn't want to be seen as an advertising company either. Google doesn't want to be seen as an advertising company. And they do that by saying, if you write ads and you structure your campaigns to be so relevant to what people are looking for with Google, to be so relevant to people's tastes and needs and interests in their feed for Facebook, Instagram, we'll reward you. We'll reward you with cheaper CPCs and CPMs, and your budget will go further. So that all comes back to, okay, circling back to local, right? So local businesses, if you're relevant and you're making a good offer and you're targeting your ads just within the locations that you serve, and you're providing value, like something which is maybe we will talk about in more detail. No advertising could save a bad product or a bad service. Zero. No, like you could hire the, yeah, and a lot of, I've seen so many clients that come, like many that I've worked with that just have a bad service or a bad product, and not necessarily, maybe it's not bad. It's just like it's just the same thing as a million other things, and it's not enough. Like you can't. No good advertising. You could hire the best advertising agency in the world. It cannot sell a bad product because the consumer is not stupid. The consumer is going to buy their iPhone case 99% of the time on Amazon because it's just more trustworthy. It's just easier. Like your Shopify site selling an iPhone case is just not providing enough value to a customer. Yeah, of course you want to sell it off your own website so you don't have to pay Amazon your sales commission, but that's greedy. Like it's just pay Amazon your sales commission. Or make me a better iPhone case. Make me something so different, so cool, so valuable that I'll buy it off of Shopify. I'll buy it off your own website. But if you're just going to sell another iPhone case that you're importing from China, that you're drop shipping from China, who the hell's going to buy it? Why wouldn't I buy from Amazon? It's much easier. It's more trustworthy. I'm going to get it in 2 days. I know that I'll get.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the pure economics, right, that for 15% that you're giving to Amazon, right, it's actually all inclusive, right? You're giving them the because there's a ton of context for the consumer, reviews and ratings and stuff like that, right? So they know that other people had great experience with that product, right? So they have a lot of context, plus organic traffic, and if you want to boost your sales, you could pay Amazon advertising on top of it. Compared to your site, if you want to do comparables, you have to produce that much traffic to begin with. You're not going to have enough revenue reviews and stuff like that. So for all of those kinds of reasons, like what Amazon does in that scenario, and also I think even if you have a Shopify D2C site, you should consider doubling down on reviews, doubling down on content, on testimonials, on how-to videos, and producing enough content that removes that kind of uncertainty from the consumer, right? And then you start spending money with Facebook and Google Ads and stuff like that. So with that discussion, you have to kind of be comparable and see where, your economics, where does it lie? And your point well taken. Like if 5 people are selling the same product or 50 people are selling the same damn product under different seller accounts on Amazon, that's not unique. That's not, so drop shipping at one point may have worked. Right now, it's not something that you should bother with that, Actually, I'm gonna change the gear a little bit, right? Because being an e-com guy, I always talk about commercial entities and stuff like that. I want to change the gear a little bit to non-commercial entities. Like how can Google Ads be used for nonprofits or different types of causes? I mean, let's say if you anything from breast cancer to what's going on in the United States right now, and supporting it. And if you want to support that cause, if you're a brand, if you want to support the cause to drive donations and to drive, for any kind of cause and stuff like that, what are your thoughts on that?
So you're talking about using Google Ads for the nonprofit sector.
Yep.
So a couple thoughts here. One is if you're a nonprofit, a 401c3, you should apply right away for a Google Ads grant. Google Ads will give you up to $40,000 a month in free advertising.
Amazing.
Yeah, and we've worked with a bunch of nonprofits. There's a lot of restrictions. There are a lot of restrictions around that money. Like you can't bid, you have to I'm not really on top of this personally, like how these rules have changed. But the last time that I looked into it, the last time we actually managed a nonprofit account, there was a $2 max CPC. You couldn't like bid too aggressively on certain keywords, but you could write your own ads. You could choose your keywords. What's cool is it's free money, right? So like your Google's giving you money to spend, and that's the first thing you should do, right? The first thing you should do as a nonprofit is get that Google grant, and then use it to start driving traffic to your site. Monitor your result, and my advice to a nonprofit is don't treat it like a nonprofit. Treat it just as legitimately as you would treat a regular business. So that means look at your analytics, look at your conversion rates, make sure you're doing conversion rate optimization, where you're testing different headlines, you're monitoring site traffic, you're making sure your forms are mobile optimized and easily accessible, your site is navigable, you're giving people enough information about what you do, you understand who your audience is, right? Like you're telling your story well. Those are all the same questions that are important for any brand, whether you're an e-commerce service business. So do those same things. Like I would say, if you're running a nonprofit, you absolutely could leverage digital advertising. Facebook's a great place to share video. Facebook's a great network to share video, to share a slideshow of images. To people today I think you see from just the protests, people are thirsty to be attached to a cause. Right? Like, unfortunately, we see a lot of people who are rioting and looting, and they're really undermining. Like anybody who wants to show solidarity and join a peaceful protest, that's part of our rights, and that gets undermined by the violence. But aside from that, people are thirsty and people are hungry to be attached to a cause. Right, that we know that. That's like, so Facebook, Google, these are great places for a nonprofit that has a clear cause, and my last thing I would say with nonprofit is you're not going to get everybody, right? Like, and it's the same thing with business, but nonprofits might make this mistake and be like, well, we're fundraising, everyone who's your target? Well, everyone. No, not everyone. Never. Yeah. No, you don't understand what you do or you don't understand people if you think that everyone is a potential donor or volunteer. You have to be very, very, you're either going to please and appeal to a specific sliver of people or to nobody. So there's going to be a lot of people who don't like your cause. There are going to be a lot of people who like your cause, but just not enough to get involved. There are going to be some people that like your cause so much, it's so dear to them that they're going to get involved. So you need to make sure you're attracting those people. And don't worry about attracting anybody else. So if you have a cause, I don't care what you're doing. If you're saving the turtles or you're working with cancer patients, I wouldn't get involved in saving the turtles. That's me personally. I would get involved in raising money for cancer research. Okay. Now somebody else might feel the exact opposite, and that's their right. No problem. But if you're one of the two, don't think you're both.
Yeah. I mean, what about nonprofits that are like, let's say places of worship? It's a synagogue, it's a temple, it's a mosque, it's a church. You just said earlier about the retail and having a localized searching and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that? Like if churches and stuff like that, they want to drive their donations in a local community, for instance.
So I would do that much more. I would not do that on Google, because Google is search driven, where people have to be looking for it for you to really leverage your advertising. And let's just face it, right? People aren't going to Google to find ways to give away their money, outside of buying a product, which is an exchange of money. So, but that's really a great idea for Facebook and Instagram, because nothing speaks more powerfully to this end than video, audio, showing. Like the imagery that you could produce and communicate through Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And YouTube is, when I say Google, I mean like Google search. So YouTube, you advertise through actually your Google login, your Google Ads account. But the visual audio formats that are not search driven, very hyper targeted. So if you're a church, you want to target Christians, right? You don't want to target Jews. Now Facebook has gotten so crazy where like they take away a lot of these targeting parameters for certain types of, like a couple of years ago, if you're an employer, like you're no longer allowed to target like locations, which is crazy because you have to give everybody an equal chance. But okay, but like People in LA don't want to. They don't want their feed. They don't want their feeds filled with my job posts for jobs in New York, right? Like,
yeah, or Long Island.
So, or Long Island, right? So Facebook is, they have to try to please everybody. So they end up hurting their own users, but they're smart business people. They know what they're doing. They know they have smart teams of analysts making these calls for them. But my point is you want to target the right people, the right interests. Make sure you're narrow. Make sure you're location based. Right? People are much more. I don't know the stats on this, but I'm sure you could find them. People are much more likely to give to a local cause than a national cause, I imagine. I'm not saying that statistically, but it just makes sense human nature wise, right? You're going to first give to you're most likely to first give to your local church or your local synagogue than you are to give to a national cause that's not close to home. So be local. So you could start with a 1 mile radius, a 5 mile radius, people in certain zip codes, and then focus on your imagery, your videos, your message. Your message is important with the nonprofits. It's got to be clear. You got to stand for one thing primarily. If you're a synagogue, it's like, we need to rebuild the building. Here are the costs. Air conditioning, $10,000. Carpet, $3,000. We cannot get back to services without rebuilding. Okay, so that's a specific cause. Then it's like, okay, well, the church might have, there's hungry children. So then if you're raising money for hungry children, don't talk about rebuilding. Hungry children are going to bed at night with their belly should be full. We live in America. You go to you go to a carnival and you eat 7,000 calories of funnel cake and come home and you could barely move and you're morbidly obese, and people next door within the community are going to bed with hungry children. That's unacceptable. We cannot let this happen. So then don't talk about building costs. That's your campaign. Make sure your messaging is clear.
Yeah, actually, we have several questions here. One related to nonprofits from Jamin Brahmbat. He's actually watching right now. Is it important to pick a nonprofit that is close to your brand, or does anything you like work?
Anything you like. The only thing that's going to really matter is if it's something that you believe in. I don't really understand the question totally, like what it means close to your brand. I guess you're saying if you have a business and you want to get involved in a nonprofit, that's how I understand the question.
Yeah, supporting certain brands, like if you think about like Warby Parker, when you buy a pair of glasses, they donate a pair of glasses to people who need it, but they cannot afford glasses in like third world countries and stuff like that. Or Tom's shoes, for example, with the sandals, for instance. Right. Those are related to your brand, and so it's like
okay, that's what you mean.
Being a business owner, what sort of charity or nonprofit should you support? Does it make sense, or can you go completely left field?
Okay, so there's two parts of that question. One is, should you aim to integrate your products and services into your charitable activity? The answer is, I would imagine yes, because Tom's and Warby Parker know that every time that there's a campaign or there's a media coverage, people are seeing their product, right? So it's much better than giving cash, right? Because every single time there's a media impression, you're getting free awareness for your product, right? These people don't make any mistake that Warby Parker and Tom's are not high level, intelligent business people, capitalists, free market advocates. Like, trust me, like these guys, anyone who's risen to the top, like a $1 billion brand like Warby Parker, these guys are sharp and ruthless and they know what they're doing. And that doesn't mean they're not good people. So giving away the shoes and giving away the glasses is smart. So if you could integrate your services into your charitable giving, that's great. That's a win-win. Now, the second part of that question is, who do you give to? What charity do you give to? Do you give to this? There's unfortunately way too many different worthy causes that we could give money to. So you give you give to what you're passionate about. You should give to. Now, I just add as a caveat, should go without saying, you don't want to give to something that's so either racially or politically charged that you're going to turn away your customers, right? So if you're going to go down the road of giving to a very partisan, I guess, charity, where like this side of the aisle is like, oh, that's a charity, this side of the aisle says, no, that's a terrorist organization, where it's like that polarized, then you should be very careful doing some customer research first. Like, who are your customers? Like, well, will they be turned off by this? Will they not? And make whatever decision you want to ultimately make, but just be careful.
Okay. So we have another question from, and I'm going to go back to our education. So because I want to make sure that we hit on all these other things. So another question from Mark Peterson. He is in Minnesota, and he says, I'm going to rephrase what he's asking. He's asking if being a small business or a small business owner, if he has only like $1,000 to spend in a month on ads, should he spend it with Google Ads or should he spend it with Facebook, Instagram?
It depends on the business. First, there's looking at it. It's an incorrect way of even looking at your budget. Mm-hmm. Nobody has $1,000 to spend, right? Like, it all depends on what am I spending it on, right? I don't have $1,000 to spend on a cup of coffee. I have $1,000 to spend if I buy $10,000 worth of sales, mm-hmm. right? Like, everything's relative. So people make this mistake of like, they look at their finances, they look at their business, and they're like, okay, I have $1,000 to spend on marketing. No, you don't. You have $1 million to spend on marketing. Like, how much money does your marketing make you? Budget is a fluid thing. Mm-hmm. It is It has to be looked at as a fluid thing. Mm-hmm. It's so now. It is true, of course, that one business might be able to risk $100,000 a day without them feeling anything. So they're going to be able to spend their money on hiring market research analysts and this, that, and the other. You might not be able to spend. You might be able to spend $1,000 over the course of a month without feeling it, and that's really what that's really what people are looking at when they assess what my budget is. But the goal is to generate sales, increase your budget, and reassess. So if you're going to spend $1,000 or you're going to spend $1,000, two things. One is spend it as quickly as possible. You get good data in most cases, but then don't spread the budget too thin. So I wouldn't put 500 to Facebook and 500 to Google. I would just decide like one channel, one platform, one campaign. And you go into it saying, if it fails, I learned something really valuable. Maybe this channel won't work profitably for my business. Maybe I chose the wrong keywords. Maybe my bids were incorrect, and I'm going to try again. The biggest mistake I see with Google Ads campaigns failing is people shutting off campaigns too early before it spent enough money. Like, that's the number one. That's the biggest thing I found. I'll give you an example. Sabir, you know this because you helped me out with the website. I'm helping a client with selling hand sanitizer. Mm-hmm. And it's a non-traditional relationship with the client. They're not paying us any management fee. My agency is putting up 100% of the risk. We're spending the money on our credit cards, and we're not a big we're not like some huge like corporation with $100 million in the bank. So we're spending and we're getting a commission on sales. It's very simple, but we are assuming all the risk. We're spending the money on the advertising. And we do this with some clients that we feel that there's a big opportunity, a big upside, whatever. But I spent $10,000 on ads over the first 5 days. And looking at my commissions, I was down around $3,000. Mm-hmm. So I spent $10,000 and I made back $7,000 in commission. Now the next week, but what did I see from there? I said, okay, I looked at it saying, wow, I generated $7,000 in sales. Okay, I lost $3,000. My goal was to look at what could I have done better, what things went wrong, and the next week I spent double that and broke even. And that's where that's where we are today. I've spent $20,000 on advertising to Google, and I've made $3. I think $3, the price of a coffee. All the work I could go buy a coffee from Starbucks. But what I'm seeing is the long-term way this plays out, and putting together all the different strategies and making sure that I'm generating as much revenue from each user as possible, making sure I'm getting customer feedback, making sure I'm updating my campaigns, just doing a ton of different work. So while after the first week, many people would say they would shut it down. I lost $3,000. Sorry, I can't make it work. My attitude was, let's double down, double down, double down. There's enough here to show that over time, this could be a really strong campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you are in a category, like let's say you produce hot sauce, right? You produce hot sauce in Minnesota. Mark is going to get a kick out of it because I think I see his icons there. Apparently he makes hot sauces. So he
Hmm.
makes hot sauces in Minnesota. Now, hot sauce is something that it's not like I buy it once and that's it. I'm never gonna buy it again.
Right.
I'm gonna run out in, I don't know, 30 days, 45 days, and I'm gonna come back and buy that thing. Customer, yeah, Mark says yes, I am. You know, uh, so when you have a category, to kind of pull it back a little bit, if you have a product in a category that's a replenishable product, right? The how do you determine your return on advertising spend or your customer acquisition cost or cost per acquisition? Those are fancy words. If you want to just
Right.
spend a couple of minutes on that.
Right. Right. Sure. And that's a great question because it's really important to know this stuff. Like when you're bidding and you're trying to determine how much you could pay for a click or how much you could pay for a conversion, it's very important to know like how much that conversion is making you. Like how much money do you actually make? That's like it's a hugely important thing. So there's a few different things we talk about, right? So cost per acquisition is your allowable CPA. Is what is you can look at it in different ways. One is you might be looking at a campaign set of data and you're saying like, well, what's your historic, right? What's your historic customer acquisition cost, your CAC or your CPA? If you're a lead gen business, there might be multiple stages to the funnel, things like that. So what you want to look at is if you're e-commerce, it's a little bit simpler because the only things that really throw a wrench in the equation is two things, right? Two big things that throw a wrench in the lifetime value equation is repeat sales. Like, does a customer come back and how often do they come back? And even if you've been around for 5 years, you don't know the full story. So you have to model out, like, are people buying twice a year, once a year? If people buy this product first, are they more likely to buy quicker again versus this product, right? These could get more and more complex, but don't overwhelm yourself with trying to figure out LTV. If you know your average order value is $120, your average order value is $100, and 20% or 20% of people come back and buy a second time, so maybe your lifetime value is $125, right? It's like simple modeling, even though you might get much more or less complex over time. Now, there's different ways of calculating LTV. So one way of calculating LTV is taking your average revenue per user or over your revenue per customer churn, right? That could give you a lifetime value if you're a subscription business. There's a lot of different ways for different types of businesses to calculate lifetime value. The important thing is to understand, what are you putting in your lifetime value? Are you going to look at, what about referrals? I get a customer and my customer tells a friend. That should be part of lifetime. Okay, let's go back a second. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself the most accurate lifetime value as possible, because I get this all the time with clients at the agency. We'll ask a client, what's your lifetime value? And they'll be like, oh, it's less because of this. I was like, we're on the same team. The more money you're making, the more we could spend profitably on scaling your advertising campaigns, because they're scared. They're like, oh, if they're going to spend too much. If we tell them, if they think our lifetime value is $1,000 for a client, they're going to think we could spend $1,000. But if I tell them it's 600, then they'll spend 600. That's not how it works. You unlock so many more opportunities competitively the more money you're making per user. That is the biggest competitive advantage you have in the auction, besides do you have a better actual product, is have you figured out ways to make more money per customer? Because that will allow you to bid more aggressively. That will allow you to enter new channels. That will allow you to corner the market, or to at least capture more market share. So that's big. That's big. So what are you putting into your lifetime value? If you're putting in referrals, if you do some analysis and you think that every customer on average, refers 0.25 new customers, then you could incorporate that into your calculation. But at the very least, you should look at your CRM data, and you should look at your order history, and you should say, like, what do I think is the repeat purchase. And if I'm a subscription, like, 'cause I have to look at lifetime value for my agency overdrive subscription, which costs anywhere between $9 and $29 a month, depending on when you signed up. I want to model out, what is my LTV? Is it 12 months on average? Is it 24 months on average? It's very hard to know because you don't have all the data. So I know my existing churn rate, but I don't necessarily know my average lifetime value. So you might have to look at a couple different values. You want to look at your retention rates. You want to look at your repeat purchase rates. You want to look at you might want to look at certain product categories that lead to a higher purchase rate. And those things will give you your allowable CPA. How much can I spend on a conversion? And if you're a service business, you have to look at your lead and your lead to close rate. So if I earn an average revenue of $1,000 per user, and 10% of form submissions turn into an actual customer or client, right? Then my break-even allowable CPA to get a form submission through marketing is $100. Because at $100 a form, I'm spending $1,000 to acquire a new customer. That's break-even. Now, if you're not doing anything else to extract revenue from those customers, then it's a wash. There's no point running marketing. But if you're going to sell the data, or you're going to find additional services for those leads, or you're going to, like in my agency, it's also very difficult. It's close to impossible to like come up with like a CPA-based bidding, because we could have a client that's paying us $3,000 a month, and we got a client that's paying us $65,000 a month, right? Like, so how can I go to Google and say I'm going to spend $200 a form? You can't. You can't do it. So what do you do in a situation like that? You run their campaigns, and you just use your brain. You look at the leads you're getting. You see, are these valuable leads? Are leads coming? Are all the leads just small businesses that are going to be paying us somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000, and you have 3 months worth of that data, and it's statistically relevant? Okay, so then you could go back. What is your conversion rate? And now I can know how much I could pay for a conversion, because these conversions are bringing in $3,000 to $5,000 a month clients. Now, how long do those clients stay for? What are your costs? Right, that's lifetime value is just revenue. Then you want to look at profit. What is your cost per good sold? What is your shipping costs? What are your overhead? What's your overhead? What are your fixed fees? What does it cost to run your business? And then you start looking at, but this is important stuff, like to really, and I would recommend people taking a crash course on this. You're just reading up on this, knowing different ways of calculating LTV, knowing how to calculate CPA, knowing the basic division, the basic math, the basic things to look for, because you cannot run a marketing campaign intelligently in a sophisticated way without knowing this stuff. Absolutely not. That would be the first thing I would have people do if they were to try to do some training, is learn these numbers, learn these formulas.
Understand what the key performance indicators are. What are, what's a CPC, what's a, CAC and
totally.
PPA and so on. Actually, let me address the elephant in the room. Google Ads, you said that has to do with keywords, right? So where do I find these keywords? How do I research them? What tools do I use? How do I do bidding? What are your thoughts on like bidding and stuff like that? But let's start with the keywords first and then jump into the bidding.
Okay. So when I create a new account, the first thing that I'm really looking for is to make sure that first conversion tracking is set up properly. Before I go into like keyword research, keyword bidding, the first thing I do is look to make sure conversion tracking is configured, because if it's not, then everything we do with keyword strategy is going to fall apart. It used to be a couple years back, it was very much oriented towards match types. So you have your bottom of the funnel exact match, middle of the funnel phrase match, broad match modified. You have some cheaper traffic on broad match. Now I tend to do everything broad match, because Google, first, besides for the fact that they're sort of ignoring match types to an extent, broad match gives the machine learning. When I'm bidding target CPA, or I'm bidding a target hour return on ad spend, broad match keywords gives Google the most leverage to achieve my goals with all the signals that they have access to. So I'll start with making lists of the most popular keywords. Google will give me some suggestions. You go online to Suval or to Uber Suggest, or just do some Google searches yourself. You get some suggestions, and you get a 10, 15, 20 keywords, and they should be thematically related in each ad group. And then broad match. And I'm telling Google, I don't care what clicks I get. I just want to get conversions and sales for this amount or less. Or I want a return on ad spend of 400% or more. But you have to be really smart in letting Google do that for you. So you shouldn't restrain and constrict the machine learning with unnecessary obstacles that are not proven. So here's an example. You might think like, oh, you know what? I don't want to spend any money on Sunday because people don't typically shop on Sunday. Okay, that might have been a smart thing to say 4 years ago. But now you shouldn't do that because you don't know that, right? And you might know that to be true statistically as a whole. Like you might have good data that says on Sunday, your sales are 70% less than they are typically on any day of the week. But what about the 30% of people that buy? Like you don't want them? Like you don't want them on Sunday? That's ridiculous. Of course you do. So Google's machine learning systems allows you to spend your money much more judiciously without restraining the machines based on your own active management. So you could tell Google, you know what? Yeah, bid 7 days a week, but just make sure you're bidding on getting me this return on ad spend. So Google will quickly learn that Sunday your conversion rate's much less because people tend to do more browsing on Sunday and less buying for your business. So Google will bid accordingly, and Google's going to try to get you that 400% return on Sundays as well. So it's the same thing with keywords. It's the same thing with settings, like making bid adjustments based on. I used to do really interesting, complex campaign segmentation by device type. I would have separate campaigns for tablets and separate campaigns for mobile and separate campaigns for desktop and bidding differently based on data and making adjustments and writing scripts. We don't do any of that anymore. Because Google's machine learning has got really good.
Very cool. That's cool. Is there any hack for bidding? And what I'm trying to get to is I heard about this coding that you can do with enhanced CPC bidding, where you could actually write code to so that you don't have to do all the things you just said, so that you're not like manually bidding, but you can do enhanced CPC bidding.
Yeah, so enhanced CPC bidding is a great way to start if you have no actual conversion data in your account. Because enhanced CPC bidding is like, okay, you'll give a bid of $2, but you're telling Google that you can go 20% or 30% up. So that Google might bid $260, $240. They might bid down, right? They might bid $160, $140, $1.40 per click, whatever it may be. And it's a sort of nice hybrid approach between you maintaining some control in the beginning versus and letting Google do some of their own machine learning adjustments. When I launch a new campaign, it also depends on the client. So if I'm launching a campaign for myself, like let's say this hand sanitizer example from this past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
If I'm launching a campaign myself, I'm going to not use enhanced CPC. I'll use maximize conversions. And it's a less efficient way of spending the budget right away. Like if you're looking at a 1 week horizon, it's not that efficient because Google just has no information. So they're just all over the place. And I made the decision that I am willing to pay upfront, so to speak, for this time savings, even though I'm going to be paying a premium for that information. And that was my own financial decision to make. Other clients would want to make that decision. Other clients would say, no, I don't want any wasting money. I want to be as efficient as possible, as conservative as possible, in which case enhanced CPC at the start of a campaign is probably the way to go.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Sitelink extensions, when you can enhance your ads and then not just have like basic copy.
Yep. So sitelink extensions are important. Extensions in general are important, right? There's a couple of reasons why. And Google has a bunch of different types of extensions. There's structured snippets, there's call outs, there's phone call, there's review, there's sitelink, there's price extensions, there's message extensions, there's all these types of extensions. But what's an extension? Just in case anybody who's listening doesn't know. Let's just say like the human body, like you have the core elements. You have your head, your torso, your legs. That's your headline, your description, your landing page URL, right? That's all you need to have an ad. That's what you need to have an ad in Google. But then there's these extensions, like maybe your limbs and your hands, and maybe some or maybe even your apparel, like you're accessorizing. That's probably a better description. You're accessorizing your ad with additional things. So one is that it gives you more real estate, right? Your ads with extensions are larger, just simply, like very simple. You have more pixels on the screen that your ad is taking up. It also increases your quality score. Because if your sitelink, what is a sitelink extension? Almost creates like a mini website out of your ad. You have your headline, 2 headlines, a description, and then Google might give you 4 links and your headline goes to one place, right? Your headline, if you click the headline, it goes to one page on your website. So you might use site link extensions to give users the options to go to different product pages, or to go to different service pages, or to go to a contact page or an FAQ page, whatever it may be. So the more relevant results you give to people, the more likely you are to get a click on the ad. The more clicks you get on your ad, your click-through rate, the percentage of people who click your ad versus the amount of people who see your ad, goes up. Once your click-through rate goes up, your quality score goes up. Google wants to show ads that have a higher historic click-through rate, because that means Google's going to make more money, right? Google has a higher statistical chance of monetizing this search if your ad is more likely to get a click, and they could bill your credit card. And it's all good. And the user gets to see a more relevant option, right? So site link extensions are probably the most important extension type, because it gives you the most customizability for where to send users, and it also increases the size of your ad the most.
So let's say if it's a holiday, even though Mother's Day has passed, right, and your brand actually relates to Mother's Day, how should I utilize like extensions to promote something like a Mother's Day campaign? Like, let's say if I have 40% off or something like that, or right, I'm giving some sort of a benefit for purchase,
That's a great question. You want to make sure that you're using promotion extensions. So Google has this really cool promotion extension type that actually has pre-built all the holidays. Like if they have Mother's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all these like default settings that you could run you could highlight specific promotions you're running. So either it's a fixed % off, or there's a coupon needed, or it's a discount, a fixed dollar amount. And you set the dates for when this promotion should be attached to your ads. So if somebody's searching, you don't need to go in and actually. What's nice about this is whenever you update an ad, a headline or description, it sends that ad back into a review process. And that could take a day or 2 days. It's really a pain in the ass. It's so annoying. So the promotion extensions allows you to keep your ads running as is, with then attaching a Mother's Day promo to your ad. So during those dates leading up to Mother's Day, users who search and then are exposed to your ad will see that you're running a Mother's Day promotion.
Oh, very cool. Very awesome. That's awesome. Any thoughts on ad copywriting? Because you're writing a lot of ad copy, right?
Yeah.
How do you do it? Are there any kind of special hacks or strategy for ad copywriting to incorporate like call to action and things of that nature?
Yes. So when I look at headlines, and I deal with this all the time, there are some rules for a person to keep in mind, and these are like my set of top level bullet points that every headline, whether it's for a landing page or for an ad, has to pass. Okay, so one, does this ad give me objective information? Okay, that's the most important thing. Saying the best fountain pens money could buy, huge inventory of fountain pens, amazing writing instruments. Nothing there is objective. Huge, the word huge means nothing, because it just doesn't mean anything. It's just a way of describing something big. Nobody cares. Nobody cares, and nobody even knows what it means. Like, what does huge mean? Does that mean 10,000 different SKUs? Does it mean 100 SKUs? Does it mean 50 SKUs? It doesn't mean anything. There's nothing objective about it. The best means nothing. What do you mean the best? The best in what? Best according to who, right? It doesn't mean anything. So if you look at this one trick alone will probably help you rewrite a lot of your headlines. Objective means it's information that means the same thing to everybody reading it. Yeah. A number, like, so if we say 4,000 different fountain pens in stock in our warehouse, that might not be your best-selling appeal, right? Maybe not. Like, that might not be the thing that people care most about. But it's something which means the same thing to everybody. Okay, so objective information. Avoid anything that is unverified or superlative. So, #1 rated app, #1 this, #1 that, #1 agency. If it's verified in a way that you could also describe in your headline or description, where it is then objective, then that's important. Fastest growing, right? Like, Okay, that might be a good appeal. That might be interesting. Can you verify it? Is it objective? So that's like the first sort of 1A and 1B of copywriting hacks. Then I do a test. Can this headline be slapped on any of my competitors and still work? If it can, it's a bad headline. If I could take my headline from my client's pen store, fountain pen website, and use that headline on all of his competitors' ads, and it would still work, it's a bad headline. So a headline like fountain pens for pen lovers, bad headline, because that could work on any of his competitors. Doesn't say anything about his business, nothing, because there's nothing unique, there's nothing different. There's nothing, and people will always say, well, it's impossible. There's a lot of people selling pens. It's not unique. Well, find something that's unique. Every business is unique in some way. Maybe it's the number of pens they have. Maybe it's their discounts. Maybe it's their customer service. Maybe it's just their location. Maybe they have a brick and mortar store where most of the competitors don't. Maybe it's the years in business. Maybe it's the amount of customers they've sold to. There's something that's specific. It doesn't have to be better. That's not what people are looking for. It just has to be different. You're treating me like, you're treating me like a real mature customer because you're talking to me in a sophisticated way. So if we've been in business, opened our doors in 1973 and we've been in business ever since, great. That doesn't necessarily make your fountain pens better, but at least you're telling me information about your company. That's objective. That's true. And that headline cannot go on any competitor's website because it just wouldn't be true.
Yep.
So that's another important copywriting hack. And then research. So if I look at a headline and I say that this headline could have been written without doing any research, that's a bad headline. So let's go back to our example with the store selling pens. If I say something like pens in all shapes and sizes, like, what a lazy headline. You have to have done no research to write it.
Yeah.
You have to have done no research to write it.
Yeah. But
if I say something like extra fine nibs made out of 14 karat gold with a chisel emboss, there's no way you could have written that headline without knowing a little bit about the fountain pens you're selling. You have to have done some research.
Yep.
You have to have done some research. Or we say machine let's say, or if it's handmade, or it's handmade using a 47 milligram mallet modified to keep the finish of the pens from getting smudged. I'm making stuff up now, but a headline like that has to have been researched, right? You have to be able to talk that way. You have to have done research about the product, about the process. That's important. If you see headlines and descriptions that could have been written with no research, it's a bad headline. So those are the 4 or 5. If you follow those 4 or 5 tips for headlines, your headlines will be amazing.
So by the way, Isaac, amazing information. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge with us. I'm gonna level it up now to the next level now. What is the $100,000 hack or strategy every business owner should after listening to you should go and do this right now with Google Ads?
So I think the biggest opportunity by far moving into these next few years is machine learning. So the biggest thing I could tell you, we inherit even large accounts. I'm talking about like $5 million a year on Google ad spend that's running their entire account on manual CPC bids. The problem with manual CPC bids is that you're using averages. If I am bidding, if I see my conversion rate is $200 and I have 10%, so it's $20, and I say, okay, 1% click through rate, so it's $2, whatever it may be, right? So I do the math and I get to $1.80 for this search term. People saying, okay, master's degrees in the UK, $1.80, because I take my value, I multiply that by my conversion rate, I multiply that by my click through rate, and I get to a dollar bid, $1.65. That's an average. That assumes that all the people searching for that search term, master's degree in the UK, have the same likelihood to convert, to click, to attend. But that's the problem with averages. It's not true. Every single person doing that search, that same search, even the identical keyword, there might be 1,000 different people searching. Every one of those 1,000 people have a different, they will have a slightly different chance of converting. So your dollar bid, your $1.65 bid is actually the incorrect bid for every single one. And we don't advertise to groups, right? Advertising is like, if you look at it at the lowest, most specific level, we don't make money from groups of people. We make money from individuals. Individuals purchase things. Individuals buy things. So advertising has to get as close to possible to the individual level, where that $1.65 bid on your max CPC bid is actually an average bid, but it turns out that you're going to be underbidding for people with a higher predicted conversion rate, and you're overbidding for people with a lower predicted conversion rate, even though it's the same keyword, even though it's the same search term. So machine learning, that's really what machine learning is really getting at, is averages are fundamentally flawed when it comes to advertising to individuals. Machine learning leverages Google signals, what they know about each individual, their shopping behavior, their travel schedules, their GPS data, their credit card information, how many children they have, how many cars do they own, how many homes do they own, what income bracket are they in, what do they make impulsive purchases in the evenings or do they not? Like, they know this information about people. What pages have you been to recently? And all of those signals give Google a better picture of your predicted conversion rate for your business at this time with this keyword. So you're letting Google set the bid based on your business goals, what your CPA, what you want to be, your target, whatever. So my $100,000 hack, and it's definitely generated more than $100,000 of revenue for our clients by leveraging machine learning, is to begin testing machine learning strategies in Google Ads, looking at target CPA bidding, looking at maximize conversion value bidding, removing obstacles, removing restraints, removing your bidding schedules, removing your bid adjustments for day of the week, for hour of the day, removing your bid adjustments for device type, removing your restrictions on match types. Now you don't need to become a convert and go to the extreme tomorrow. If you have a big account that's running on manual, you don't need to go and switch everything to automation tomorrow. But the $100,000 hack, if you want to become better and more profitable through Google Ads, is begin testing machine learning strategies while slowly removing the restraints that you've imposed through your manual restrictions.
That's amazing, Isaac. So just to kind of finish this up, how can people check out? I mean, I would highly recommend if you could pitch your the digital course. I have recommended it to so many people. It's an awesome course, the marketing overdrive, and as well as your where people can, if businesses want to get in touch with you to engage you with Google Ads management and other types of media services.
Awesome. Yeah. This was a great interview. I really had a fun time. The hour really flew by. I think it was a good conversation. And I hope that it was useful in some way to the people listening. So if you want to get in touch with our agency, our website is adventureppc.com. You could Google us, Adventure Media, Google us, and you'll find our website, links to different things. We have a podcast on the site. We have our agency services. We have some ebooks and resources. If you want to look at any of my full-length courses, you can go over to udemy.com, udemy.com, or you can get to them from our website, adventureppc.com. You could also check out the Agency Overdrive. The Agency Overdrive is the premium training product that we have now. It's a monthly subscription. So you go over to our website, and under training, you'll find Agency Overdrive. If you sign up, you get immediate access. You get immediate access to over 40 hours worth of lectures. These lectures all come with calculators and templates and proposals and slides. It's advanced stuff. It really is geared towards helping people grow their own agencies if they're freelancers, but it also helps people just with more advanced Google Ads strategies, conversion rate optimization strategies, and things like that. And the feedback for the Agency Overdrive has been very powerful. So I hope to see you guys in that subscription.
Well, thank you for Isaac for joining us today and getting into the hot seat with me. I really appreciate you being the first one on the This Week with Sabir, our first episode, premiere episode. And thank you for all of the live audience that joined us and also are consuming it as a recording on various different platforms, whether it's Twitter, YouTube or Facebook. We will try to also put the recorded version on LinkedIn later today, so that you should be able to access it through various different ways that you guys follow me on those platforms. Thank you, Isaac, and thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sabir.